There's this film, 10 Letters We Dropped from the Alphabet. It has almost 4 million views. It's an okay video, but it gets a few things wrong, so I'm going to talk about that.
Little Latin-speaking kids would sing
W, X, Y, Z, and per se, and...
That ending eventually got strung together by English speakers and became ampersand.
This is a very confused explanation. And is not a Latin word, so no Latin kids were saying and per se and. Maybe they would say et per se et, maybe, I don't know. And they also wouldn't be singing about the letter W, because that is also something they didn't have in Latin.
Long story short, eth was also used as a symbol for th, but a different kind of th.
What do you mean, a different kind?
Not in English. This letter could make either of the two th sounds.
As you might imagine, having a letter meant to represent a sound somewhere between two other sounds is not very definitive, so ash fell out of common use.
The reason ash was dropped is because the a sound and the ah sound for a time in Middle English merged, so for a time there was no need for this letter and people stopped using it.
Number 7, Ethel, the letter that everyone's great aunt is named after.
The name Ethel comes from a word that meant noble, and this letter here was named after a rune, and the rune was named after a word which meant something like inherited land or native land.
Sadly, the confusion that it caused with the letter 3 ultimately doomed it from becoming permanent, and it was quickly abandoned and replaced with the GH combo.
This letter was not quickly abandoned. It survived for like 300 years, ever since the Normans brought over the Carolingian G, let's say around the year 1200, just to make things simple. So they show up with their Carolingian G, and that clashes with the native insular G, and so the native insular G is turned into a standalone letter apart from G, and that is how Yoch got its start, and it lasted all the way up to around the time of the printing press. For England, that is like the year 1500 or so. So that's like a solid 300 plus years. And by the way, around this time when Yoch was losing popularity, the Arabic, or maybe you might want to call them Hindu numerals, hadn't fully caught on yet. They were still catching on in Europe at the time, in England at the time. So trying to blame the Arabic numerals for the loss of popularity doesn't really line up historically.
Number 8, Win. So this one's pretty cool. It's a letter that basically came in second when English opened up the phone lines for public voting. You might not know it, but there was a time when English scribes didn't actually have a letter to represent the W sound.
They did have a letter for the W sound. It was a rune, and then they Latinized it for use in the Latin alphabet. There was no period where they were looking around for a W letter and then people randomly made up Win. Like, that just didn't happen.